Welcome back. You're listening to Holistic Health Magazine Radio. I'm your host, fitness expert Patrick Corona, founder of Get Fit America. You can find out more about me at my comprehensive website, getfitamerica.com. Today's topic is on obesity. Now, this is a topic that really hits home with me. See, I come from an obese family, so my whole life I've seen people that I love struggle with their health. And it certainly wasn't from lack of trying. I mean, my goodness, they've tried every gimmick and gadget and popular program you can think of. I can remember, in fact, when I was about 8 years old, I snuck into my parents' bedroom, being the mischievous boy that I was, and underneath a pile of clothes was this peculiar-looking machine. Well, I unloaded all the clothes onto the floor, got on the machine, and it had a belt on it, and I put the belt around my head, turned on the machine. I nearly decapitated myself with that stupid thing. Does anybody remember the machine that came out in the 70s that was supposed to shake the fat off your body? Well, it nearly shook my head off my shoulders. You know, the truth is, if you want to improve your health, you're going to have to work really, really hard at it. And you're going to have to do this on a consistent basis. And also, this is going to have to be performed over a long period of time. You know, unfortunately, most people don't want to hear that. And in fact, the health club industry is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry, but yet we as a nation are continuing to get fatter and fatter. In fact, America is currently the fattest nation in the world at 30.6%. And I found that odd when I was looking this up, and I thought, my goodness, Mexico with all that great food, and Italy with all the pasta. How could it be that Americans are the fattest nation in the world? Well, about 3 years ago, I went on vacation with several family members to Sicily, and we were going there in search of our ancestry. Unfortunately, all we found was more pasta and cheese. Now, every morning we would have bread, cheese, fruit, and coffee for breakfast. For lunch, we would have chicken or fish, salad, and pasta. And for dinner, we would have more bread, more cheese, and we'd wash it down with a glass of wine. I lost 7 pounds on my trip to Sicily. I don't know if you've been there before, but it's a very mountainous country, and we were very active in walking all around, seeing all the sights. So we must have walked about 5 miles a day. But, you know, at the end of the trip, losing the weight, I realized, my goodness, you know, these Italians are eating bread and cheese every day, but there was no one there that was obese except my family that I was with. And, it's no mystery that in order to lose body fat, you have to burn more calories out than you're taking in. Well, we as Americans are consuming way too much food. In fact, Americans consume nearly 4,000 calories per day per person. Now, this has continued to add to our rising health care costs. Currently, obesity causes many medical conditions, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, cancer, low back pain, sleep apnea, and a host of others. Today on my show, I have Dr. Adam Friedman. Now, Dr. Friedman is an eating disorder specialist. He was in the critically acclaimed documentary Thin, that was on HBO, and it was up for a Sundance Film Festival award. Also, Dr. Friedman is the co-author of 2 eating disorder books. Today, he'll be enlightening us on a lot of the psychological components behind why people are obese. Welcome to the show, Dr. Friedman.
Good afternoon, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Let me ask you a question, Dr. Friedman. In all of your years in working with the obese population, what would you say was one of the main reasons for their obesity?
Well, I think when you're dealing with an eating disorder, which is really what obesity is, I mean, they call it compulsive overeating now, but, the fact is it's using food to the point where it becomes interfering with your day-to-day functioning, which is really what a disorder is. Whether it's anorexia or bulimia or compulsive overeating, obesity, you're talking about the type of life where you're so caught up in what am I going to eat, when am I going to eat, how am I going to eat, where's the next place to eat, where's the last place I ate, and what am I going to eat tomorrow, that it takes away from your day-to-day activities, especially obesity, because physically you get to the point where you can't do the things that you love to do and that you once were able to do. So when dealing with the underpinnings, really the whole idea is that, I tend to liken it to steam in a pipe. You have a pipe, you have steam in it, and eventually, if there's enough steam in it, you're going to have a crack in the pipe. And the crack in the pipe is what we would call a symptom. And obesity is one symptom. Another crack in the pipe could be anorexia, or it could be drinking or drugs. But the fact of the matter is, until you get to the steam, you're really not going to affect change, which is why I believe in psychotherapy. I think it takes a while because it's not easy to get to that steam. It's unconscious. It's below conscious level, and people don't realize why they keep tripping over the same ground again and again, which for obesity is going back to the same food and the same behaviors.
Now, why do you think people lean towards being obese as opposed to drug abuse? Have you noticed a difference maybe in their childhood that would drive them towards one thing versus another?
Well, I think childhood plants a seed. I think that for many families, and I'm sure anyone out there will contest that there's a family they know where if the kid does something good, they give him ice cream. If he scrapes his knee, they give him candy. If the team wins the big game, they go out for pizza. So, right off the bat, they start to get sensitized on an unconscious level that when I do something good, when I do something bad, I celebrate or I soothe myself with food. And that it's like throwing a pebble in a pond. It carries over through the whole lifespan.
How much of the blame do you think for our eating habits can be put on our parents?
Well, again, I think it depends on their lifestyle and how much effort they put into educating the child on what is reasonable and unreasonable to do as far as food. It goes back to what I was just saying, where if you use it as something to celebrate or soothe, if you use food for purposes that food is not used for, you're going to, there's a great chance you're going to create something that is going to be long-lasting and can turn into an eating disorder.
Well, my own experience in working with obese children, oftentimes I'll sit down with parents and I'll explain, well, little Jimmy, he really likes Burger King and he has it every day and I just can't seem to, get him to stop eating it. And then I say, well, Jimmy's 10, so how's he getting there? And let me ask you this, if little Jimmy kept saying to you, well, I'd really like some Jack Daniels, Mom, would you take me to the liquor store? Would you take him? Of course not. It's a ridiculous question. In fact, sometimes people are offended when I ask them that. But guess what? If you're taking your child who's 50 pounds overweight to Burger King, I'm offended.
So you're saying it was wrong when my mother gave me Jack Daniels?
Yes, I'm saying it's wrong.
All right.
Let me ask you, Dr. Friedman, oftentimes the motivation is a factor for the obese population, and they just have a hard time getting started. So what advice do you have for them to help them get over that hump and find the motivation that they need to get towards a healthier lifestyle?
Well, I think when it comes to taking the first step toward getting into a recovery phase of an eating disorder, what I talk about is sober moments. I think when you're in the middle of binging on food, you can't stop. You're not going to stop, and it's unrealistic to think that someone's going to be able to have a rational thought in that moment. But it's when you're away from that, when you have a moment where you're thinking about what you've done and what you can do to prevent it. If you know that when you come home from work from 5 to 6 o'clock, that's the time where you really start to eat a compulsive amount of food, then you have to do something in your sober moment to prevent it. Invite someone over at that time. Make plans for that time. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to put the roadblocks in the way of the pattern of behavior that you want to get rid of when you are at that sober moment, when you're thinking clearly.